Hi everybody, it's Jessica from Chambray Blues. I am going to show you a trick today on how I ease my sleeve caps into armholes. I have here a lightweight cotton quilting fabric that I'm making into a nightgown, and I have marked my sleeve with some notches. So the gathering, or the easing rather, supposed to start here at this first notch. I hope you can see that. There's a notch there. There it is. And then I've got one at the top where it will meet the seam of the shoulder. And then there's another one here towards the front of the sleeve. So that's my method for marking sleeve patterns. You might use a pen or you might cut your notches out. Everyone has a little different system, but that's what I use. So for easing the sleeve in, I'm going to stitch 2 rows of ease stitching. I'm using a basting stitch of 5.0 on my machine, and I'm going to start at this first notch at the back of the sleeve and work my way towards the front. And I'm going to be sewing with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance for my first row. The reason I use a 3/8 of an inch the first time is because I don't want my ease stitching to show on my finished sleeve, and I'll show you how it's going to work in just a second. So there we go. So here's the first row. You can already see the sleeve is sort of starting to gather naturally, which is great. That's what I want. So now I'm going to sew a second row of stitching 1/8 of an inch away from the first, and I'm going to stitch towards the seam allowance. So my first row was 3/8 of an inch away from the edge, and then the total seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch. So the last row of stitching will completely enclose the basting and you won't see it on the finished sleeve. So I'm going to stitch this next row close to the first, about 1/8 of an inch away into the seam allowance. All right, so there we go. So you can tell that this sleeve is already starting to gather a little bit and have a little bit of shape to it at the top, which is great. That's exactly what I want when I put it into the armhole. So my project I am working on I've sewed the shoulder seams together already. I have not done the under arm seam, the side seam of the garment. I'm going to leave that until last, and this is just a really easy method for putting things together. So I have the back of my sleeve here. I just use 1 notch to mark the back, and I don't put any notches in the front, so that is again my method. I'm going to start sewing here, and I want to make sure that I line up the sleeve with the shoulder seam. So I have a notch at the top of the sleeve with the shoulder seam. I'm going to line that up as I sew. And you can pin your sleeve into the armhole if you wish, or I usually just kind of wing it and sew without. But there's a trick to this. So when you do this, if you stitch it from the other side with the sleeve cap down into the feed dog of the machine, that will help distribute the gathers. So I don't have any pins right near me, so we're just gonna wing this and hope for the best. So this time I'm using a regular stitch of 2.5 and a 5/8 inch seam allowance so that those basting stitches will not show. As I go along, I'm just gonna match my edges here. And I'm gonna plan ahead, make sure that the top of my sleeve will match the shoulder. There we go. You might need to pull up the gathering on the sleeve just a little bit to get it to work. This works great on lightweight fabrics. If you have a heavier type of fabric, you'll need to sew the side seam first and then insert the sleeve on the round. But this also works on knits, actually really well on knits. So. Okay, whoops, didn't cut. All right, so there it is. Now at times I have to go back and restitch a little. Sometimes you need to, but look at how nice and smooth this sleeve cap comes out. This one turned out really well. It needs some pressing, and then I will hem the sleeve first and then stitch the side of the garment all the way down the side. So if you are on my page, I will post a finished photo of what this garment's going to look like tomorrow. So thanks for watching. Have a great day.